We started with building something that is a global marketplace, one marketplace that the providers and the donors and the recipients, the beneficiaries, can all come together to get resources for tech. It's not easy to not be digitally strong, and it's not a good idea, whether you're a nonprofit or a business enterprise. We have to always look for ways to do it that is very affordable and sustainable for all the people and that brings value to all the different stakeholders.
Hi, I'm Rod Miller, and today we're glad to have with us Rebecca Masisak, former CEO, now Executive Chair of TechSoup Global. Welcome to Opportunity Miami. We're glad to have you.
Thank you very much, Rod. I'm very glad to be here.
Philanthropic capital often underinvest in technology, yet technology is critical for scaling impact. How are you and TechSoup tackling this divide?
Well, in many ways, but we started with building something that is a global marketplace, one marketplace that the providers and the donors and the recipients, the beneficiaries, can all come together to get resources for tech, whether that's products, software or hardware, or skilling and training, or just advice and help from someone. So we've built that, and it has served to date 1.4 million nonprofit organizations, and we have distributed more than $15 billion worth of technology, and in some cases supported cash grant making as well. And we do that to just help the community be stronger, to get the resources they need, but also to find out what their peer organizations are doing, and to try to raise awareness, for donors and others to support it, because it's not easy to not be digitally strong. And it's not a good idea, whether you're a nonprofit or a business enterprise.
It's an incredibly important mission. So many organizations are doing great work, but don't have the technological backbone to actually support the work, whether it's hardware, software, skills, etc. And I was surprised to learn, I assumed that this was something that, in the last 15 or 20 years, but this organization has been around almost 40 years now.
1987 we started, yeah.
How has your model changed over the last 40 years?
And the subtext for that would be, how has technology changed, as well as civil society. But we started matching mentors for technology from, if you remember the online community, the original one, The Well. Our founder was part of that, and he noticed that there were lots of people that he knew, social activists who had small organizations that were using this new thing called the PC computer, and then they really didn't have the technical skills. And then he saw there were a lot of kind of geeky people who did have the technical skills in that community. So he set up a matching service. And that was kind of the start. And he was a former journalist and had a lot of contacts with people who were reviewing software. And sometimes they had review copies, and they said, hey, if you send somebody over to pick these 3 copies up, you can give them to somebody. And so we hired a guy who still works for the organization, who had a pickup truck, who did that picking up. And that was all happening just in the local Bay Area. But obviously over the course of time, we realized that need was just so wide. And we built hundreds of relationships with technology providers in order to be able to have all of the kind of standard things that were needed, and the scale to kind of put that together, and then took that eventually not only to the US, but also to, like I said, over 200 countries.
Over the years, TechSoup has gone through significant transformation. And a lot of that was driven by, these technological changes. What are some of the lessons that you've learned over the years that have contributed to the model of today?
Well, I'd say one basic lesson we've learned is that there are still gaps, no matter how many things you kind of improve, and maybe the advancements in technology improve. So for example, originally it was very hard for the corporations to have these kind of donation programs of their technology. They wanted to share it, but they didn't. There was nothing like a corporate social responsibility lead or any kind of role that could do that. So the nonprofits would approach them, and they would be like, well, I don't know who's who, and I'm not really sure how I'd get this physical product shipped and all those kind of things, right? So those barriers were one thing, and for the organizations, the barriers besides knowledge was also just the expense, because it was a very high price for a license at that time, right? And now you move forward to the cloud and, heads of social impact and CSR, and it's a totally different world. But still, for, I'd say 91% of the organizations we help have a budget of under 2 million, and 74% are under 1 million. We got technology changing, at this super fast rate in really big ways that's disrupting many industries, let alone the nonprofit sector. So we have to always look for ways to do it that is very affordable and sustainable for all the people, and that brings value to all the different stakeholders. And everything we do in collaboration, with many other people. So that's kind of the secret behind our models and the things that we've had success with, and we will continue to have success with. And one of the things we're thinking about now is we've just recently launched a CTO for the sector kind of service. We did it in partnership with another nonprofit named Tech Impact, who's based in Philadelphia but has many places across the country and works even outside the country. That service includes a tech check and a consultation, and then it also includes a membership in TechSoup's Quad membership program that allows you to learn from peers, talk with other people who are maybe working on similar issues or trying to implement technology as well.
Civil society is so important in terms of just us being able to live the quality of life that we've had. And there's so many nonprofits doing great things. And you mentioned a little bit about the profile of the companies, or the organizations you support. When you look at the services you provide a pretty vast array of supports. What would you say are the top issues or concerns that nonprofits are facing as it relates to technology?
Well, there is everything from basic to the really critical. And the basic is more or less like being able to have a workspace, like a Microsoft Office or Google apps, whatever it is that you're using for that, right? And a website, But the bigger issues are cybersecurity and how you can ensure, you are being careful with your data and protecting privacy when you have vulnerable populations you're working with and so forth. So, we are focused a lot on also cybersecurity for that reason. Just a couple of statistics maybe that are helpful to understand what a big problem it is. I think that this past year, the second most targeted sector was this sector, and then it's only behind like energy and mining and this kind of stuff. I think 65% of the nonprofits that Okta reported on kind of the ratio between attacks and authentication happened. 65% of them reported problems, and that grew from 2.6% to 18% year over year. So 600% growth year over year. We would hear about it sometimes from the large corporations that have like these security centers and lots of monitoring, and they would warn us that they were seeing things that made them think there would be attacks in the sector. And of course, we try to provide some education. We also have a digital resilience program that is really focused on how prepared are you and what can you do with your infrastructure and what are the practices you need to follow to be secure.
The pace of change is happening so fast. I mean, we've talked global, but let's drill down to local. You're relatively new to Miami. What brought you here? What are your impressions of Miami, and how do you think what are the opportunities for TechSoup here?
Well, on the personal front, I'll say my husband's a sailor, so the warm water and that aspect of Miami. But we've both always liked Miami, and he thought about coming here to live many years ago, like 20 years ago or more. But we're very glad to be here, like the multicultural nature of the city, and I'm in fact excited to be having this conversation because I want to connect more locally. I've had an opportunity to connect with, as you might find not hard to believe given my answer, some nonprofits who focus on sailing or focus on the waterfront and how for disadvantaged people they may or may not have as much access to that. I think things like the beauty of what's special about Miami need to be shared with everyone who lives here. Knowing where to hook up and where maybe to contribute is something that I'm personally interested in.
Well, we'd like to believe we can help you with that.
I'll bet you can.
One of the things, so you kind of alluded to it. What are some of the things that you see as some of the biggest opportunities here, but also some of the biggest challenges to us really becoming a tech hub?
I can speak a little bit to being a tech hub in the nonprofit sense, but of course I maybe would also say from a little bit of exposure I've had on the business front here, because I did come from a business background and was part of tech startups and so forth. What I've noticed from other people is that they really, there's a lot of enthusiasm and there's a lot of openness. But to really do something closely or collaborate or get the right advisor in your midst, you have to sort of have some real way of connecting, like a very concrete thing you can do together, and that's not always easy to come up with. So I see that energy, and I really like it. I see that openness and like it, but I also feel like there just needs to be more ways for people to get to know broader set of people, probably, and then more people like the work you do, but also in general other kinds of people who are bringing people together and doing it. When I talk to like the Association of Nonprofits and others, I know it's a topic that comes up and people do have questions about it. And I think from everything that I know, we have like served 22,000 organizations in Florida, and I think like 2,200 in Miami itself. So I know that some of them are tuned into the resources that TechSoup has and are making use of that.
For someone who really wants to understand TechSoup, where should they go? What should they look up?
It sort of depends on who you are and what you're looking for. We do a lot to help grant makers do a deeper due diligence for international funding. So that service is called NGOsource, and that's a place that they can enter, and they can be a member of that, and they can make it, if they do things there, they can get reused by smaller foundations. So in a way, they're growing the funding pool as well. Okay. If you're a nonprofit looking for technical help, coming to TechSoup's website in the U.S. will be an easy way to get an overview of things.
If you had unlimited resources and no constraints, because you're clearly a builder, what would you build next?
I am so a builder. You pegged me correctly. So I joke because we always talk at TechSoup about running towards the next hard problem. I just sort of feel like I was engineered to take on hard problems. Sometimes when I was working on things in other jobs, people would say to me, colleagues, "What? That's really hard. Why are you even doing that kind of thing?" Right? But they are satisfying when you can figure them out. And there's something about that I actually really like, and then I like to make it stronger and stronger and keep it alive. And everything has to change. Nothing can stay the same way. So what would I do with unlimited resources? I think I would really try to help figure out ways to, in particular, help the really small organizations so that they had more presence, could tell their story. Every human being probably has been helped or influenced or something by a nonprofit, or if you stop and think about it, you'll be hard pressed to say that there's anyone that hasn't been.
It's interesting. So I've been here now about 3 years, and I will tell you that this community is incredibly open once you kind of figure out how to bring people together. And so one of the things that we've been doing a lot of is figuring out how do we bring the best of the Miami that's always been here with the folks that are new to town. So we're glad to have you here, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It was really a great conversation. I appreciate it.